On today's episode of Pathmonk Presents, I have a very special guest with me joining today. Please welcome Dave Boyce. Now, for all of you who don't know, Dave is a man of many things, entrepreneurial part of, product-led growth. He has his own book coming out. Dave, it's an honor to have you on today's show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be here. Let's have some fun.
Heck yeah, absolutely. I love the attitude. Great way to kick off on a Friday. Am I right?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. So for all of our listeners out there, tell them exactly like what you do at, product led overall. What does the company do? What do you guys focus on? And, how do you serve your clients overall?
Perfect. So I run the consulting practice at a company called Winning by Design. We work with recurring revenue businesses like SaaS companies, and we help architect the recurring revenue machine. That includes businesses who use product-led growth as a go-to-market motion, who use marketing-led growth, who use sales-led growth. And once you get to kind of a scale-up size, maybe 50 million to 100 million in revenue, it will inevitably be a blend of all of those. So we help CROs and heads of revenue operations architect that out, make sure that we're being deliberate about what we're going to get from this motion, what we're going to get from this motion, what we'll get from this motion, and how those blend together into an overall growth architecture.
All right. So thank you for explaining to me what you guys do overall. So as for your clients, with being an architect firm, do you mainly focus on certain sectors? Are you more towards the healthcare sector, more educational, or does Winning by Design, serve all different types of industries?
It's almost always software as a service. If you think about the biggest software as a service companies that Calendly, Figma, DocuSign, Dropbox, Asana, these are all clients of ours. When you get to a certain point and you've been growing and you've been succeeding and you want to keep growing, but you're not exactly sure which things you're doing are contributing to the growth, which things are going to run out of steam, and which things you might need to start doing that you haven't been doing, that's when we come into play, usually around 20 million in revenue or more, and getting up through an IPO.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you for giving me the rundown on that. So then how does your audience typically find you? What are your top client acquisition channels overall?
This is what you guys do. So we have a very strong ethos around generosity. We have a lot of intellectual property. We've built data models and business models and blueprints and frameworks for how do you make a recurring revenue business work. And it may sound crazy, but a lot of revenue leaders, got their first experience in non-recurring businesses, where the idea is to make a call on bookings and then hit the call on bookings, meaning I got to go sell things. But in a recurring revenue business, I don't only need to sell, I need to retain, and then I need to expand. So it's not over when I hit my bookings forecast. I actually have to help that customer succeed over time so that they'll come back for more and more. So we have a lot of frameworks that explain this, that detail it out, that put the blueprints in place. And we're extraordinarily generous with these. They're out on YouTube, they're out on our website. We have an open source site where all of our frameworks and blueprints are published. And then we also even give away training through free, almost weekly workshops that executives can attend and revenue professionals can attend. Our view is that if these things become ubiquitous descriptors for how recurring revenue business works, then when someone wants and needs help installing some of that into their business, they know who to come to.
Oh, wow. Super cool. I love how you were able to walk me through the whole process so I could be able to understand, everything you guys do. So the webinars and what you guys, these resources, is this one of the main aspects that, that you were seeing as a huge demand within your market for how you're serving your clients? Or how did you guys end up, deciding, okay, this is where we're going to put a lot of our time and effort into these aspects?
That's such a good question. A lot of times, and it really relates to this idea of product-led growth, a lot of times entrepreneurs come up with something they think is a good idea, and then they try to sell it or push it to customers. And that's, in my opinion, not a great idea. What we want to do is listen to our customers, figure out where they live, what problems are they trying to solve, and then we want to be generous in trying to help them, and then they'll come back and help us refine our product or our service offering. So the first question you asked, like, how do we come to this as a need? Just by listening to and working with customers. We know that there's a certain point when you're scaling that you're sure that your revenue machine is going to, well, you're nervous that your revenue machine is going to run out of steam. You know it's going well, but you're not sure which things you're doing are working and which ones aren't. So we learned that by talking to CEOs and CROs and heads of revenue operations. We learned that there's a nervousness around that because it's not as deliberate or architected as they would want. So we fill that gap. How did we come to the conclusion to just kind of give it away? That's sort of a product-led growth philosophy, to lead with generosity and then let people get to a certain point where they want to come back and purchase.
Wow. I think that's really cool, especially where you guys have been able to identify it and, being able to leverage this for your advantage overall. So that's really great. Now, we're going to shift gears here. We're going to talk about the website. So what would you say are the major strengths of your website, and then the areas of improvement that you could focus on overall?
You want us to air all our dirty laundry out? Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Yeah.
I think our website is good at distributing content and information. If you want to know when the next workshop is, you want to access some of the catalog of YouTube videos around kind of free content, you want to get to blueprints or frameworks that will help you run your business, that's great. I think where we could be better and what we will be working on is role-based customer journeys within the website. So I'm a first-time sales manager. Where do I need to engage? I'm a product-led growth, a growth product manager. Where do I need to engage? I'm a revenue operations leader. What would the right journey be for me? And can you steer me to that content so that I can self-educate? We don't have it that way now, but we will soon.
That's awesome. So you guys have plans coming down the pipeline in order to improve your process overall. So that's great.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So now I'm going to ask you some different questions.
Okay.
And pretty much these are about you and how you are as a leader. So what does an average day look like for you in the office?
Oh, well, first of all, no office. This is my office. This is my home office.
Super cool.
Yep. In fact, nobody at Winning by Design has an office. We're on many continents and many cities, and everybody kind of works in the way that works the best for them. It's a very cool company in that way. I personally am an early morning guy. So you're catching me several hours into my morning already. I often get 4 or 5 hours in of work before my first phone call.
Wow. Okay. So you're an early bird riser.
Early bird, that is just my personal style. It allows me to get a lot of deep work done in the beginning of the day when I have energy, and then I can do meetings, and then I can tie things up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I personally work, I have a small number of direct reports, and I like to help them be very clear about what they're working on and what they're allowed to say no to. I think it's very, it's doing people a disservice when we're not extremely clear about what we're trying to accomplish. And we run this by quarter. So we set up quarterly objectives. We talk about it. We write it down. We describe it in a way that allows me to, that's aspirational. Like, this is the thing that if I were to able to say this at the end of the quarter, I'd be very happy. And then once we've got 3 of those identified, everything else is a nice to have. So if something else is competing with your time, and hinder my ability to go hit one of those three objectives, I have the ability to say no. So then when I work with my team and they come back and we're working on prioritization, that if it helps them get one of those objectives done, then great. If it's competing with those objectives, they have permission to say no, even if it comes from someone who they think is senior to them, even if it's a really important thing. And the only time we would make an exception to that is when we talk it through and adjust it. So that allows people to be fairly empowered. And then it allows me to help them knock down barriers and create paths to victory for those three things. And we know that there's something else that we're going to do next quarter. Great. It stays on the list. We don't have to work on it now because we've got three things that we're working on now. We might want to put on a list and we might want to make it one of our three things for next quarter. So that's my philosophy for how we can kind of make progress in a reasonable way.
I think it's really great that when leading your team, you've got, a vision basically explaining, okay, so these are the goals that we're going to obtain within this quarter. Whatever we can achieve in next quarter, we're going to focus on next quarter, but focusing on now, because I feel a lot of marketers and, just creatives in general, just anyone in any profession, they always tend to look ahead where it's like, no, focus on now, reach your goals for in this quarter, and then focus on next quarter when it comes. So I think it's really great that you remind your team and you keep them in order to where it's like, hey, don't worry about it. Focus on now. We'll be able to focus on the other things we have, like coming down the pipeline in the next quarter. So I think that's great.
The other amazing thing about creatives and marketers is we have tons of ideas. Like,
exactly.
We wake up and we got another idea, and tomorrow we have another idea, and then we talk to a customer and they bring us an idea. The danger is that we try to shove all of those ideas to your point, into the present tense, and it doesn't have to be. They can go on a list. We can prioritize. We may have an idea that's so amazing that we want it to take center stage. Okay, then we'll demote one of our three things and we'll work on that, but we can't do everything all at once.
Yeah, you summed that up perfectly. We can't do everything all at once. And I remind myself of that too. We cannot do everything at once.
Right.
Put it into plans, put into goals, and we'll get there. You know what I mean?
There you go.
Exactly. All right. So we're getting close to the end of our interview, and I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go fast.
Perfect. All right, here we go. First one. What is the last book that you read?
I am reading right now a book called Traction. And the last book I read before that, I don't remember. I read a lot. What was the last book I read before that? I think I reread a book called Designing Your Life, and I think I reread a book called Playing to Win, but I'm not sure if those were the last ones I completed.
The design book that you mentioned, I actually just ordered it. So I'm super excited.
It's so good. Designing Your Life. It is so
Yes.
good. I've read it multiple times. Yes.
Okay, I'm excited. Looking forward to that. Now, next one. If there were no boundaries in technology at all, what would be the one thing you would want to have fixed in your role as a marketer today?
Connecting individuals with their individual journeys with the companies where they work now. I'd like to know who you are, regardless of where you work. But when you're working somewhere, I'd like to know that you're connected to that company. And then I'd like you to bring your all your awesome self to your next company and know that you're connected to that company. And B2B marketing, it's super important to know who's where and who's engaged with us in the past, whether it was with their current company or not. And that's a very hard problem to solve.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe AI can solve this for us in the future, hopefully.
Great.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, what is one piece of advice that you would give yourself if you could go back and restart your career? What would you tell your younger self?
Solve for fit first.
Okay.
Don't solve for title. Don't solve for prestige. Don't solve for salary. Solve for fit. Like, where can you be your most awesome self? This is me speaking to myself. What gives you energy? What allows you to show up in the very best way? And get those other things out of your purview. Like, those are distractions. Once you show up as your very best self, you will be happy, and happiness has gravity. And all those other things will be attracted to you. You'll get an opportunity for salary. You'll get an opportunity for title. You'll get an opportunity for prestige. But it starts with you being the best version of yourself. And that means you got to be where you were meant to be, doing the things you were meant to do.
That's awesome. And I love that. That is something I'm definitely going to take with me moving forward. So we're at the end of our interview, and I want to thank you so much for taking time to join us on Pathmonk Presents. But I also want to give you the last word. If anyone forgets about everything that we've talked about today in this interview, what is one thing that you want them to remember about your company overall?
So winning by design is the name, and we want to succeed by design. We don't want to succeed accidentally. If you are in a recurring revenue business, software as a service is a good example of that, and you want to architect your growth, we would love to partner with you. We'd love to give you frameworks. We'd love to see you on workshops, and let's go build together.
All right, sweet. You heard it here. All right, thank you so much again. And for all of our listeners, check us out next week on Pathmonk Presents.